So we are continuing with our next panel. We will have Diego Mansini. Are you there? Diego is our Director of Engineering in IOV Labs for the Apps and Services group. And the panel will be about opportunities and risk in a multi-chain world. Guys, welcome.
Thank you, Edan. Hello, can you hear me? Yes.
We lost someone.
Yeah. He's coding, probably.
No. I want to see you guys. Wow.
Okay, so this panel is about opportunities and risks in a multi-chain world. For that, we will try to discuss with Bernardo Corti, founder of EMDX, Edan Yago, contributor to Sovryn and founder of Cement DAO, and Sergio Lerner, co-founder of Rootstock, about bridges across blockchains. So, Bernardo, do you want to start letting us know what EMDX is?
Yes, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Bernardo Corti, co-founder of EMDX. EMDX is a decentralized derivative protocol trying to bridge traditional derivative assets into a Web3 environment. Okay? As of now, we are running our protocol on Avalanche, but we are working very hard to deploy all our derivative products on RSK. Well, that's quite about us.
Thank you. Yago, you?
So my name's Yago. I am a contributor to a project called Sovryn. Sovryn is a community-governed, it's basically a DAO with the purpose of building a world on Bitcoin. The system is a suite right now of DeFi products, governance products, as well as things like NFTs that are built on Rootstock, and also integrate with other chains, which is going to be what we're talking about here, as well as Lightning Network.
Thank you. And Sergio, do you want to say something?
Yeah, you know me. I'm Sergio, one of the co-founders of the Rootstock sidechain, and a member of the Bitcoin community also.
Thank you. So the first question probably for the audience is, what's the bridge? Yago, you want to take it?
Yeah, so every single platform, which is a chain, right? So every single blockchain is effectively a way of storing memory of a state that we've come to consensus about. So for example, with Bitcoin, it's very simple. We have some people have Bitcoin, some people don't. How much Bitcoin does everybody have, right? That is the state that we've come to consensus about, and the blockchain stores the memory of that. It's a registry, right? Now, the same thing is true about Ethereum. The same thing is true about Rootstock. But we have these records of assets and transactions that are occurring inside each of these chains. But what we would like to be able to do, because they're assets that are important to us frequently on different chains, or we even want assets or smart contracts to interact between different chains, is we want information, we want tokens, we want records to be able to be transferred, ideally trustlessly, between different chains. That transfer has to be done somehow, and the term that we use in the industry is bridging. And I'm sure we'll talk about how it's not trustless today, and where we need to go from here is a higher degree of trustlessness.
Thank you, Yago. So essentially, a bridge, it's an interoperability solution that allows users to transfer assets from one chain to the other. And I would like to ask you, Bernardo, how can this kind of interoperability encourage traditional financial players to come to Web3?
Okay, this is a very interesting point because, I think that decentralized finance will eventually take over traditional finance. It is much more efficient, and it is a matter of time. So the only thing to think is how the process will unfold and how we can accelerate it. So when you see which is the current status of the traditional financial infrastructure, you see that they are 50% digital, 50% analog, and they are even using fax machines in some workflows. But they have an infrastructure that do works. So I think that cross-chain interoperability protocol should have a kind of component-focused approach. So we have to develop things to interact with these kind of Web 2 backend systems and to allow them to come in and to use all the full potential of blockchain, smart contracts, crypto derivatives, oracles, and so on.
Thank you.
May I add something?
Sure.
Yeah, it's very interesting what is happening. And I think it was predicted in 2010, was that each chain would specialize in some function. Like you would have a chain with super high anonymity and a chain with super high functionality and another chain for gaming. And this is something that was in the early people ideas. And now with cross-chain communication protocol, we are reaching a point where you can basically move your assets, move your digital assets to the chain when you need to use them for the purpose you need to use them. And that is transformative.
Yeah. Yago, you mentioned that today they are not as decentralized as we would like to have them. So what are the limitations? What's preventing us from having real decentralized bridges?
Right, so bridges have been a real problem in many ways. In the last year and a half, there's been something like $1 billion worth of assets stolen from bridges. And even maybe more fundamentally, the reason we're here today is because one of the things that Rootstock provides and that we realize is important is the ability to bridge Bitcoin from Bitcoin layer 1 to Bitcoin layer 2 and beyond. So why is this such a problem? It's a problem because, starting with the second example, with Bitcoin, Bitcoin has limited scalability and limited functionality on layer 1 by design. If we do not have trustless ways of bridging Bitcoin to additional layers of functionality, let's say we wanted to have a chain like Rootstock, which specializes in providing EVM smart contracts. We have a different chain which specializes in low-cost transactions for Bitcoin. If we don't have a trustless way of moving Bitcoin between these different layers, we lose the security property and the self-custody property of Bitcoin. The whole reason we wanted Bitcoin in the first place, we start to lose. Now you take that idea and you expand it across the entire crypto space, and what we have is a situation where you can, with a high degree of trustless assurance, or you can use like tokens on Ethereum, but if you want to transfer them to some other place, now you're re-entering this world of intermediaries. And intermediaries, as we know, are security holes. So this is a huge challenge. So, for example, with Sovryn, we bridge assets from other chains, for example, from BSC, from Bitcoin, and from Ethereum. With Bitcoin, we bridge assets using a relay called FastBTC. It's federated. It doesn't have the same level. It uses PowerPeg, but it's faster than PowerPeg. So you're basically giving up a level of trustlessness in order to get faster confirmations, but you're giving something up. And more than that, it places an onus. They're actors within the Sovryn ecosystem who need to take on that responsibility of managing the relay of your Bitcoin. The same thing happens with transfer of, say, Ethereum from transfer of ETH from the Ethereum network into Sovryn to be used in the Sovryn AMM to trade against Bitcoin. These things are terrifying, right? Like, if there's one thing that keeps me up at night when it comes to Sovryn, it's not the smart contracts that we've built, which are highly secure, right? It's the potential for exploits around the bridges. But we've seen a huge amount of advance in terms of being able to get closer to cryptographically trustless bridges. If you've heard about roll-ups, right? Zero-knowledge roll-ups. What a roll-up is it's effectively a trustlessly or near trustlessly bridged chain. We have the opportunity to do that for Rootstock. We have the opportunity to do that between chains, and we have ultimately, and I think this is, the big deal. If we can do this, it's game over. We've won, 100%. Is to trustlessly bridge Bitcoin to other layers, also using zero-knowledge proofs. So I'm very excited about the future, but until we get to that future, we are all taking on additional risk when we're bridging.
May I add? Oh, this is very interesting because also the idea of decentralized bridge it came in 2014 with a Blockstream paper on sidechain. So everybody was excited about really decentralized sidechains. But I think there are three blockers for having fully decentralized bridge, very precise blockers. One is an impossibility result, a theoretical result, which was brought by Sammartin in a paper called Cross-Chain Communication, which he states that essentially for cross-chain communication, you have to give up something. Like either you have a trusted third party, or you have to assume synchronism between chains, or you have to assume some crypto-economic assumption in your bridge. So that's, an impossibility result. That's something very strong. So you have to think about what are the weakness of each one of the assumptions you take. Another very interesting blocker of a fully decentralized bridge was the fact that Ethereum protocol, Ethereum consensus was changing every 6 months. So if you wanted to build a bridge from, let's say, Rootstock to Ethereum, then you would need to upgrade this every 6 months with the new consensus protocols. And this is scary because if you really want to create a decentralized protocol, just do not touch it anymore. But if you still need to fix this every time, then it's not worth the trouble.
How decentralized is it?
Yeah. And the last one, I think it was the most important probably, is that to build a decentralized bridge, you need to build a light client of each consensus into another blockchain. And since every blockchain is different, then now you have to build a lot of light clients, and each one is different. So the effort, the coding, design, engineering that you have to do is such big to enter this multi-chain world, right? Not to bridge two chains, but and if you just do a federated bridge, you can just replicate it very easily. So the amount of effort you need to build a really decentralized multi-chain world is enormous. Even though I think this is changing with better self-knowledge proofs, I think we will see something better in the upcoming years.
Well, I mean, in terms of it being enormous, it's true that it's very, very large effort. But yesterday, we saw the collapse of FTX, right, which took 8 billion, maybe more, of our funds, right? Well, not mine because I wouldn't use it, but anyone who's using a centralized exchange, their funds were lost. There was more than $2 billion invested in FTX, right? How much has been invested in trying to build trustless bridges, which would get rid of the need for even having an FTX? I don't think it's been even, it's certainly probably not even 200 million, maybe not even 20.
Totally agree.
So those are very good points on technological challenges and a little bit on financial. But Bernardo, can you let us know what are the challenges from the financial world?
Yeah, I think that interoperability will have a huge impact on DEXs. There will be impact on both sides, positives and negatives. Positives, I think it will help overcome the liquidity and market fragmentation problem. Hello, yeah, better. It will allow users from every blockchain access the whole pool liquidities independently in which layer they are locked or deposited. I see also other benefits like network effect. I think that it will unleash tipping points, which means that very small changes will impact higher and higher. Then we'll be able, once I think standardization in cross-chain interoperability protocol are achieved, we can expect to get some kind of escape velocity. On the other hand, on the flip side, I would say that standardization won't be easy to achieve. There will be a big problem for derivative exchanges, specifically speaking, which is the flow, all the data that you will have to manage at the same time. Because there will be data coming from your native blockchain, plus data coming from oracles, plus market data coming from the chain where you have your collateral deposited and your users are trying to use to open positions. I think that it is one of the greatest challenges to face.
You mentioned standardization in your answer. Do you think that at some point we will reach a moment in time that the user will be agnostic about the blockchains that are behind the scenes and they can transfer from one chain to the other without worrying about breaches and all that, or that's not going to happen? Never.
I don't know. I don't know, but I think that at some point in time, at some point in the future, users won't see what is happening under the hood, and it is our responsibility to build trustable things.
Yeah, I think that for that to happen, we must decouple the high security breaches with the swaps, small amounts, fast bridges, flyover protocols, that we cannot ask this high security breach to be fast, to be autonomous. They need a lot of layers of security. And then we can have fast bridges with liquidity, small liquidity, swaps, and everything just to make this fast and easy for the user. But we cannot have both of them. That's the greatest problem. Now some companies want to do fast and secure, and that's impossible.
So just on that last point, I'm not sure. And the reason is I think paradigmatically it doesn't make sense to think about blockchains as purely or maybe even primarily computer systems. I think in many ways blockchains are more similar to countries. They each have their own set of rules, they have their own set of policing and governance, they have their own economies, they have their own currencies, they have their own registries of assets. And so when you move from, I don't know, using one server of AWS to using another server of AWS, there's not a lot of friction. And you don't really need to know, which server you're using. But when you're going from Argentina to Russia, you probably want to know. When you're moving your funds from one bank to another bank, you definitely want to know, and that's because you have different types of trust assumptions. So, to an extent, it's also about how we think about and how we educate people about what blockchains are. Bitcoin is a jurisdiction. It's got its, no government controls Bitcoin because Bitcoin controls itself. It's its own country. It just doesn't have borders. Every other blockchain which takes itself seriously is also a jurisdiction. And so I'm not sure we're ever going to have or even want frictionless sort of transparency to the end user.
That's a good one.
That's interesting.
But we are almost out of time. Any closing comments about this topic? Bernardo?
Yeah, I'm pretty bullish about cross-chain interoperability. I think that solving the liquidity fragmentation would be such a big thing. But I think that, as I said before, standardization will be something really huge to work on. Well, I think from the decentralized exchanges point of view, it will be one of the biggest things, because once you have this technical foundation, which is cross-chain interoperability protocol, we can build on top of that cross-domain interoperability, which is people, community interacting thanks to this trustable, highly reliable technology. And I think that is the point to get to.
So that's like the holy grail that we should aim for.
Exactly.
Sergio?
To get to this state of breach, all chains breached that we aim to, I'm very humble. I think that there's too many scams right now, too many problems, and I'm just work to make the POPEC the best, the most secure bridge in the world. And that's my daily, as Yago mentioned, that's what makes me, not sleep well at night. Is making. I want to make sure that I'm putting the layers, the security layers, to make the bridge the most secure and take care of people's funds. And I think that if everyone does that, then we will get to a point where there are trustless breaches all over the place.
I agree so strongly that I'm going to give my final comment to you. I want to know what the next step for PowPeg is.
Well, I have the whole research and innovation team there. Woo! And they are they are working on, for instance, they've been working very hard, like Pato, on SegWit integration. This is important to make the bridge cheaper and faster. And we also are working on improving the security on the devices. I think that I'm not sure I can say it, but the whole firmware of the POPEC is now open source. You can go and check it. This is something that we've been waiting for so long. I think this was something that Adrian probably wanted to mention, but yeah. So we are open sourcing everything we do, so that you can evaluate the security and you can, of course, report anything that you find that vulnerability, a bug, or anything. So yeah.
Awesome. We are out of time. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Diego.